Today we have Katie Stanton, who's going to be talking to us about social media monitoring, and we're gonna go through that together. She has an awesome presentation put together, and then at the end, we're gonna do a Q&A session. So you can type in the meantime into the chat box or the Q&A box there, any questions that you have, and then at the end, I will read them out and Katie will answer them, and we'll just kind of go from there. So if you think of something, feel free to write it down there, but we will make sure to answer them all at the end. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to hand this over to Katie, and she's going to talk to us about social media monitoring.
Thanks, Hannah. So, hey, everybody, I'm Katie Stanton from The Good Lemon. We are a very small digital marketing and communications shop based in DC. And today we're going to go over social media monitoring on a budget. And if you want to hit that next slide for me, Hannah. Thank you. So the big question, what is it? You might hear a lot of these terms floating around like media monitoring, social media listening. And a lot of people use these terms kind of interchangeably and might mean the same thing. But this happens a lot in marketing and communications. People use the different words to mean the same thing, or they aren't on the same page about what the heck we're talking about, right? So let's go through some of these terms. Media monitoring, you might be the most familiar with. This is something that a lot of PR professionals do and a lot of communications professionals do to keep up with mentions of a brand or mentions about an industry in the media, in newspapers, broadcasts, radio shows, that kind of thing. And media monitoring reports are usually referred to as clips reports. So this is when a PR professional is looking for certain keywords, certain relevant stories for their company or for their industry, and collecting it either daily or weekly into a report that informs their team about what the heck is going on with the brand and how are journalists and TV hosts and people like that talking about the brand. It's reputation monitoring in the media, right? Social media monitoring is the same principle, but on social media channels. So this is when your social media professional is gathering data about your brand or about your industry based on what they see on social media channels. This is also a version of customer service. So this is looking at your social media channels to see what your customers are asking about you. Maybe they're asking you directly for something or for help, or what they're talking about and if it's related to you. So if they're talking about your brand, if they're talking about your competitors, if they're talking about your industry, both of those things give you data, which is something we love, right? Data helps you make business decisions. It helps you plan marketing campaigns. It helps you figure out how to be competitive. And another thing that we hear a lot, or another term we use a lot, is social media listening. Listening is taking all of that data and deciding and analyzing it. So deciding what you're going to do with it. And the reason that I'm focused on social media monitoring here today is because that is one of the easiest things to do on a budget. Gathering data about your brand and about yourself and your industry using social media channels that you have access to, hopefully for free. You can go to the next slide, Hannah. Thank you, ma'am. So why do we care about monitoring and listening? The first reason is that social media is what you use for customer service these days. So if you've ever been delayed on a flight or your flight was canceled and you want to yell at someone at an airline about it, you might go on Twitter, right? Or you might have trouble with a product and you might send a company a Facebook message and ask them for help. Our social channels help us learn about our customers and what they need and helps us solve their problems. Monitoring also helps us learn about our competitors in our industry. It helps you stay competitive and it helps you make business decisions that could really change what you do and how you do it based on what you learn through monitoring, right? So both of these things can boost your business by providing better customer service and also giving you really actionable information that you can bring to the rest of your team, or if you're, a solo person, you can use to make really important internal decisions. Next slide, please. So I'm going to go through a few methods for how to do this yourself in kind of an informal way. Monitoring and listening can be as complicated as you make it, but if you're running your own shop, you have a really small team, or you have a really small budget, you can use social media networks to learn a lot on your own without having to get expensive tools or hire, a pretty pricey person. So I'm using as an example, Blue Bottle Roasters, which is a company you might be familiar with. They've got shops all over the place. And if you are doing marketing for a small business like this, you might want to use Twitter to start to learn about how people feel about coffee in DC. Are they talking about your brand? Are they asking your brand things? Just to start to gather information. And this is a tool called TweetDeck. This application, it's a web-based application that Twitter actually owns. And this is a way for you to manage all the information that you can find on Twitter in a column format. And that way you can leave these columns up and check them anytime and, do combinations of keywords or search for different things and easily see and process all this information at once. You can create, I believe, up to like 10 or 15 columns that when you scroll to the right, just keep going and going. So this is just a screenshot of what it looks like, but you can try this out for free at tweetdeck.com and log in with your Twitter account. TweetDeck can also let you schedule posts. It can let you look at your different Twitter lists. It does all kinds of cool stuff. But for our monitoring purposes, what we're using here is its search function. So in the top left, you see where it says underneath the tweet button, this is the search bar. You can type in keywords, you can type in hashtags, you can type in lots of different things. And then you'll see on the right that you can filter what you see based on location. So that column all the way on the right are tweets that are geotagged near DC. So if I'm a coffee shop owner in DC and I want to see what else people are talking about, or if they're talking about Blue Bottle, I'm going to look for tweets that are geotagged near me and get a sense of the local industry. You can see underneath there's a couple of posts as an example about COVID safety measures, about people wearing masks. So clearly this is on people's minds, right? And if I'm a business owner or if I own a coffee shop and I see that people are concerned about COVID, the smart thing to do would be to say, hey, how can I integrate these safety measures more in my business? Or how can I address and keep up with my competitors, right? In the middle, we see, I've just typed in a phrase, best coffee in DC. And Twitter is going to deliver me tweets that contain that phrase. You can use quotes around it if you want it to be specifically that phrase, or if you don't use quotes, it'll pull up those words in different combinations. So you can see just a few examples, but it pulled up a ton of tweets about people talking about the best coffee in DC, right? And in the middle, you can see that Blue Bottle had a direct question that they then replied to. And this is a great example of customer service. Blue Bottle's social media manager should be monitoring their account, right, to see the questions that come in directly, but they should also be using a search feature just like you see on TweetDeck to keep up with mentions of the brand and find opportunities to solve problems. So in this case, we've got a customer who's looking for an item that's out of stock, and they came up with a response to address her concern. Now, they might not be able to do everything to solve her problem, but they're at least acknowledging what she said and leaving her with a good feeling like, hey, okay, they heard me and this company is accessible and reachable the next time I have a problem. And that is great for the reputation. So give TweetDeck a try. It's a great free tool. And actually, if Twitter is important for you, it can do a lot more than this, but this is a great way to start playing with it. Hannah, you can do the next slide. Okay, Facebook. So Facebook has some search functions built into it that are kind of unused in my opinion, like not too many people use them. The challenge with Facebook is that a lot of posts have different privacy settings. So it can get a little tough to find posts from all of your customers because it depends on their privacy settings and if their posts are public or not. But it can be a useful tool for seeing local posts and for seeing posts from public business pages and finding out even just who your competitors are. Are they on Facebook? And is this a channel that you need to be on too? So you can see, I just looked up coffee and I'm looking in the DC area on the left. You'll find this search bar basically at the top of your Facebook screen, and you can find it on mobile too. And when you enter in any phrase, there are different filters for the results that you can play with on the left. I'm looking at posts, and I'm looking at posts in Washington, DC, because again, this is our example of the local business owner, right? So you can see an example of the results. These are public posts from other coffee businesses. And why this is helpful is I can say, okay, are these my competitors? What are they posting about? And we see at the top, one of my competitors has done something really awesome for local healthcare workers. So maybe that could give you a marketing idea. maybe that could give you a partnership idea if you want to join in and expand what they're doing and co-brand it. And down below, you can see fall drinks are here, cinnamon, maple, oat, nitro. Oh my gosh. You can also see what your customers are offering, because a lot of businesses will just post pictures of their new stuff online, right? You can take this to the next step by clicking on these pages and checking out the reviews. I like to do that because I want to get a sense of what their customers are feeling about their business, and if there's anything their customers are saying that I can learn from. That's the listening part of this, right? So if you see a lot of different reviews that mention the same thing, that they're doing really well, or a lot of customers who have the same issues and problems like over and over and over again, that can give you something to work with and say, hey, I can offer something different, or that's a really good idea. Maybe I should integrate that into my business too. Related to that, you might get reviews on your Facebook page that you need to pay attention to. You might get replies, you might get messages that you should respond to. And that's a different training session, managing your Facebook page, but pay attention to those notifications and those comments when they come in. Make sure you're monitoring those things regularly, because Facebook is still a really popular platform, and it's especially popular with people who want to reach businesses and, solve problems, let's say, or leave reviews about different things. Hannah, you can go to the next slide. Okay, Instagram. Instagram is a little bit different of an approach for a couple of reasons. First, you can search by location, and like geotagged location, and you can search by keyword instead of random phrase, or hashtags instead of random keywords. So what makes this interesting is that people are posting things on Instagram that they find inspiring, that they find, that they want to show off to other people. Like when someone takes a picture of a business on Instagram, it's usually to show off on some level. So what we want to see here is, how are people visualizing your brand, and how are they talking about your brand, and is it something that they take pride in? The other thing is, if you have a local business, are people posting about you, especially if you have a brick and mortar? So just as an example, I typed in Georgetown just to see what people are posting when they're physically in Georgetown, or they're tagging that location. And you can see in the very bottom here, we have a Blue Bottle logo. So there's the Blue Bottle roaster in Georgetown that people like to post from. Can you hit the next slide, Hannah? So I also looked at the hashtag, and I want to see, are people, posting about Blue Bottle, and are they doing it in Georgetown? And we get the same post top left. So that tells me that posts from Georgetown might be kind of popular, and I should look it up. And also, if people are enjoying my branding so much that they're posting very artistic photos of it and sharing it with their followers, that's a really good sign that I might be doing something right? Like that contributes positively to my brand reputation. That if you see people posting about your competitors, like posting their logo or posting something creative or going, wow, isn't this really cool? And you don't see them posting your stuff, that could also tell you it's time to invest in some design and some branding, right? Or maybe you need to get a little more creative. And the reason this is interesting also is because if you know your customers are on Instagram, but you're not sure how to get them to kind of represent you or get them to be excited about you, you can learn from your competitors and see how your customers post about them creatively. And if they don't post about your competitors at all, maybe Instagram is not the channel for you, right? So this is all information gathering to learn as much as we can about our customers and about our industry, so that you can be competitive and, keep up with what's going on, right? And we see that Blue Bottle is such a popular brand. All of those posts, all of those different iterations of the hashtag, get creative with the hashtags that you're putting in to make sure that you capture everything. Spend some time on this and see how people are doing creative things either with your brand or with the other brand, because you might not even expect how people, get really creative, or if your customers are snarky, how they turn things into memes or things like that. So just do your due diligence and look at different iterations of these things to make sure you capture everything. Hannah, you can do the next one. Okay. So looking up your business and your industry regularly. How regularly? Set a schedule. So social media professionals and marketing professionals will do this once a quarter. Really good people will do this once a month. I mean, I do media clips for folks once a week, sometimes daily. You need to set a regular schedule because what you learn the first time you do this can be different from the third time, the fifth time, the 10th time. So we also want to use just straight up Google searches to really understand your customers. Now that you've looked on social and seen the keywords that they use, the hashtags that they use, take that information and put it into a Google search and start to dig, see what else you can find. And you really want to know, are your customers the type of people who go on Reddit and ask each other questions, or are they spending time dancing on TikTok? If I ask you that and you don't know the answer to that question, it is time to research. The other piece of advice there is to actually ask your customers what they do. And this can be a really fun conversation. So next time you're interfacing with somebody, just ask them like, hey, are you on Instagram? Do you know what TikTok is? Is this something you like? You want to get to know your customer on not like a personal level, but more like a deeper level than just, hey, do you buy stuff from me? Great. Get to know what they do and what their sense of humor is and how they talk to their friends, because all of that is data that you can use to design effective marketing campaigns. You also want to Google your competitors and find more reviews, right? So I mentioned Facebook reviews already. That can give you a ton of useful customer data. Look up their Google reviews. Every business that has a Google listing potentially has reviews. Look up their Yelp listings, go back, look up Glassdoor, see how much you can learn about the other people in your industry and what you can take away from it. And you might even search yourself, right? So Google your business, Google your name, and go past the first page of those search results and make sure you find everything. This can get kind of addictive actually once you start to dig and do more customer research and brand research. But what's great about it is that you're being armed with information and you can catch any potential crises before they blow out of control, right? I mentioned Glassdoor. If you haven't heard of that website before, that is a place where employees can post reviews about their employers. My clients that, many of them are not aware that this website even exists. And sometimes we've had to have some tough conversations about what their employees have shared anonymously about their business. Glassdoor is not hard to find, but sometimes it's on page 2 or 3 of search results and, folks don't even see it. So you want to make sure you're checking everything and catching any potential issues before they could potentially get bigger. Do your due diligence and spend some time digging around. And don't forget to check news.google.com. Now that gets into media monitoring, right? That's Google's news site. But you want to check mentions of your competitors or mentions of your brand just to see, is there local news about you? Are there news stories that you didn't know existed? Has anyone written about you and not told you? That happens sometimes. And it's better to know and be able to follow up with those journalists later, or at least be aware of the tone rather than to go into things blind, right? So check all of those tabs. Google has made it pretty easy and free. Thanks, Google. And then next slide, Hannah. Thank you. Remember some of these best practices about doing your monitoring. So like I said, consistency, stick to a date, pick a date on your Google Calendar or whatever calendar you use that's reoccurring, once a month, once a quarter, and make it your research time. Just keep up with all this stuff. In terms of social media notifications, make sure you check those daily. You don't want messages to go unread, and you don't want your customers to feel like you're not paying attention. In terms of customer service, hopefully you know this already, but you are your own customer service representative, right? Every time you engage with a customer, that's gonna reflect on your brand. So make sure you're solving problems for people, you're being proactive, and you're leaving them with as positive of a feeling about your company as possible. And sometimes it's just a matter of acknowledging that customer, right? But the last best practice is use good judgment. So not every comment necessarily needs a direct response. Negative comments, you kind of have to decide, is it worth engaging with this person, or are they just giving you valuable data that you can use later on? If you have trolls who are jumping on your social media channels, you do not have to engage with them. There are tools to block them or delete them if you need to. But remember that your customers are watching what happens on your social media pages, right? So if you're just blocking people and deleting people, that doesn't necessarily help your reputation. When you don't know what to do, consult a professional. So call your friend who works in PR, call us call Hannah, and get someone involved who does this all the time and can give you some sound judgment on how to respond if you're not sure. Or if you think that there might be a problem bubbling up, call a professional who can help you make a plan. Okay, next slide, Hannah. Okay, there are a couple of paid tools that we at the Good Lemon use all the time, but I'm a big believer in not overpaying for these kinds of things. So these are fairly affordable. For social media monitoring and listening, we use the tool called Awario. Now that analyzes specifically Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Reddit, blogs, websites, everything for $29 a month, which is a steal. But that amount only gets you a certain number of mentions each month. If you're monitoring a brand that is mentioned all the time, you might have to pay more to get all of those mentions just because it's, a lot for them to bring you every month, right? But if your business is not getting so many mentions, this is a very affordable option that also gives you analytics across all these social media platforms, and it gives you sentiment analysis. So it can basically alert you when there are a lot of negative posts about your brand or about a certain topic. You can also analyze certain website URLs. So that's useful if you're running a campaign and you want to see if people are posting about it, or there's a news story that you really want to keep tabs on and you want to see what are people posting on social media about this specific link. That's how I use it for some of my clients. So that's a really handy one. The other one that we love, and Hannah has used this with me quite a bit, is Feedly, which is a news monitoring platform. It's primarily media stories. It also does Twitter monitoring, and it does keyword alerts. It does all kinds of fun stuff. But they are a great startup company that is doing this for starting at $6 a month. And if you've ever worked with a PR firm before, you know that media monitoring tools can run into the thousands per month, just with all kinds of bells and whistles that a lot of people really don't need, frankly. So if you want to start doing media monitoring on a pretty basic level, Feedly has a free option, or the pro option starts at $6 a month, and that is a steal. I am a huge fan of this company, and they're super nice too. So if you work with them, you are signed up for a plan, they will literally set it up for you and really work with you to make sure you're getting the results you need. So I highly recommend them if monitoring media is something you're interested in at all. Next slide, Hannah. Okay, so monitoring on a budget. Some of the key takeaways here: be consistent, do your due diligence, really look at everything and be proactive, right? And if you have any questions at all about monitoring, or you get kind of stuck, feel free to email me anytime. That's my email address, and you can visit our blog for lots more advice like this.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie. That's perfect timing too. Yes, I 100% agree with Katie. The Feedly is like life-changing. I started using it with some work I was doing with Katie, and I literally use it for my own clients now. So it is a lifesaver, and it's pretty addictive because if you find the right stuff, you'll end up reading like a million articles, which is great, but also sometimes you have other things to do.
Yeah,
so all right.
Hard work.
Yes, it is. Gosh, it is so much fun and also a lot of work. Perfect. Okay, I feel like I even just got a good refresh on this. So that is always super helpful. Let's see if there are any questions. If anyone has any questions about monitoring or about kind of tracking in social media. Denise, thanks so much. I'm glad that you found this super helpful, even if it's not directly relevant to what you're doing right this moment. It is always super good to just kind of know what's out there.
Well, and monitoring can come up at any time, because if there's ever a crisis, like with your brand or with someone you know, or even sometimes a personal crisis, these are the kinds of tools you can use to just really gain an understanding of what's happening. Like I remember there was an earthquake in DC many years ago, and as soon as the room stopped shaking, I jumped on Twitter and found out in like 5 seconds, okay, this is what's going on, and was telling everyone in the office, so just remember some of these things for an emergency.
Yes, I actually have found that, so the customer service piece, I literally am always kind of harping on that too with clients of mine who, especially if they have products, can be super helpful, because I went to Whole Foods once in like a quick story premise. I basically bought like expired sausage, breakfast sausage or something, which I just didn't read carefully enough. Anyway, I tweeted at Whole Foods because I didn't want to have to deal with anything else. Within like maybe a day, they had refunded me like everything, and they said, "Oh, you can go exchange it out at the store, or you can just throw it away, whatever." And but like that made a difference to me, because if they had just ignored it, I probably would have been super annoyed and would not have gone back. Although it is Whole Foods, so that probably wouldn't have lasted that long. But yeah, I
there's a
definitely
statistic about this that I remember when I worked at Starbucks, they used to say this: if a customer has a negative experience, they're more likely to tell 3 other people. If they have a good experience, they might tell 1 person, right? So you always want to turn these interactions into a positive experience. But if you don't even know what your customers are saying, how can you do that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, just be proactive and make this a habit, and you'll be set.
Love it. Awesome. Well, that is perfect. I know I got a lot out of this. So if anyone else comes up with any other questions that they have, or they just want to reach out to Katie, or if you didn't get a chance to take down her email, it will be in the follow-up email. So you can definitely reach out to her, to me, and we can try to help you figure out what works best for you. So thank you guys all for coming and joining. I'm so thankful, Katie, that you were able to come and share with us today. I know I learn a lot from you every time that we get to chat and work together. So I'm sure that has just been super enlightening to our participants as well. And then for everyone next week, we're going to be going back to me, which is kind of fun, but also sad, because I love having guest speakers come in and share their perspective. We're going to talk about Facebook ads. So that is going to be a big topic. We're going to cover it over 2 weeks. So if you have questions ahead of time, feel free to shoot them my way. But yeah, if you guys have anything else, make sure to reach out to Katie. And thank you guys so much for coming and listening and sharing. Just really enjoy it. So I hope I'll see you guys next week.